nuclear republic of Iran, and the measure condemns the violations of human rights and the state-sponsored terrorism of the Iranian regime. Joining us by satellite is Mrs. Miriam Rajavi, President of the National Council of Resistance in Iran, whom I welcome to this gathering.
Good morning, Chairman. I'm delighted to be with you today. I would like to hear you first, please.
Well, thank you, Mrs. Rajavi. During my 14 years in Congress, I've come to know the Iranian people's struggles through so many of their expatriates who have found refuge in America. Their passion for freedom is an inspiration for all who know them, and their commitment to liberating Iran is what brings all of us here today. Without these freedom fighters, both here, around the world, and most importantly within Iran, this growing, resolute, and determined resistance movement would not be possible. With this resolution, the elected representatives of the American people add their voices to the growing chorus for liberty and justice in Iran. Americans still celebrate our own struggle for liberation nearly 2.5 centuries ago, our own victory over tyranny and oppression, and we still recall that the stronger we stood, the more allies rallied to our cause from around the world. This is why we're standing today in a free land, and why Iranians will surely soon stand upon the free soil of their own country once again. There are more original co-sponsors on this resolution than we saw when a similar measure was introduced 2 years ago, showing the growing support of the American people for your cause. Our parties are divided on many issues, but not on this one. On this issue, we stand united with you. House Resolution 100 catalogs the long list of outrages, crimes, and injustices inflicted by Iran's dictatorship upon the Iranian people at home, and as well as their nuclear and terrorist threats to the peaceful global community abroad. Today, we see the women of Iran taking the lead against this Islamic fascist regime. We all know the story of Mahsa Amini, beaten to death by Iran's morality police. They, too, have had enough of being treated like property. They will take no more, nor will their sons and daughters. Mahsa was not the first martyr for Iranian liberation. We remember the 1988 massacre of over 30,000 political prisoners, and so many others who have fallen to the death committees of this regime for merely defending their own liberty and dignity. The guilt for these atrocities extends to the highest levels of this regime, and the guilty who cower behind their Islamic guard must and will be brought to justice. It is only a matter of time, and their time is running out. With this resolution, Congress is expressing the plain truth of the matter, inciting so many instances of human rights abuses and terrorism cloaked in diplomacy. The bipartisan House majority is telling the Iranian people and the world that it stands with the organized resistance and against the tyrannical rulers who have wrecked their country and plagued the Middle East with terrorism and brutality. The lamentable anniversary of the Iranian Revolution is upon us in 2 days. Let this be the last anniversary of this corrupt, backward, and illegitimate regime. Let the next anniversary be one of liberation, deliverance, and thanksgiving, an anniversary that will mark a new Iran, restoring its rightful place among the just, free, enlightened, prosperous, and happy nations of the world. The path toward a free, secular, democratic, and non-nuclear Iran is laid out in Miriam Rajavi's 10-point plan, which will ensure that the freedom of expression, the freedom of assembly, and the freedom for every Iranian to choose their elected leaders becomes the foundation upon which this new Iran is built. Here's what the representatives of the American people on this resolution have to say to the people of Iran and to the world. That the House of Representatives condemns past and present Iranian state-sponsored terrorist acts against United States citizens and officials, as well as Iranian dissidents, including the Iranian regime's terror plot against the Free Iran 2018 gathering in Paris. It calls on relevant United States government agencies to work with European allies, including those in the Balkans, where Iran has expanded its presence, to hold Iran accountable for breaching diplomatic privileges, and to call on nations to prevent the malign activities of the Iranian regime's diplomatic missions, with the goal of closing them down and expelling their agents. Third, it stands with the people of Iran who are legitimately defending their rights for freedom against repression, and condemns the brutal killing of Iranian protesters by Iran's regime. And finally, it recognizes the rights of the Iranian people and their struggle to establish a democratic, secular, and non-nuclear Republic of Iran. Ladies and gentlemen, history stands with you, Providence stands with you, and freedom-loving people throughout the world stand with you. This is your moment. This is your time. Godspeed to you in your rendezvous with destiny. And now, I'm pleased to recognize Congressman Greg Stanton of Arizona.
Thank you, Congressman McClintock. Thank you for leading on this incredibly important resolution. I am proud to support House Resolution 100. For decades, the Iranian regime has violated the most basic of human rights. It has done so as a state sponsor of terrorism, and it has done so against its own people, especially women and girls, limiting their freedom to dress how they like, to own property, to receive an education, or to earn a living. The regime's tactics are brutal: intimidation, coercion, sham trials, and state-sanctioned violence. That's never been more apparent than in the last several months. Following the horrific death of 22-year-old Mahsa Amini at the hands of Iran's morality police, 3 simple words became a rallying cry: woman, life, freedom. Echoed by thousands of protesters in universities and neighborhoods across Iran, this call for freedom has reverberated throughout the world. It's the focus of a new mural by Iranian Arizonans that was unveiled just last weekend in my hometown of Phoenix, Arizona. I'm proud to stand here today among a bipartisan group with one message: America is united and steadfast in our support for the brave Iranians demanding a better future. Each of us here and this Congress, in a bipartisan way, is committed to making sure that we hold the Iranian regime to account for its gross human rights violations. And I look forward to voting yes on this resolution when it gets to the House floor. Many of our colleagues are here. Congressman McClintock, I don't know who's next, so I'll let you decide among your colleagues who goes next.
Great, thank you, Greg. Next on our list is Congressman Randy Weber of Texas.
Well, thank you, and I am absolutely proud to stand here today with my colleagues to recognize the rights of the Iranian people and their struggle to establish a democratic, secular, and let's emphasize non-nuclear Republic of Iran. This resolution that we offer, and thank you, Tom, for doing this, offers highlights that the people of Iran, quote, rejected monarchic dictatorship and are opposing religious tyranny. Simply put, I'm horrified by the paranoid regime's brutal repression of its own freedom-loving citizens, its own citizens. But all these evildoers should be paranoid, shouldn't they? Come on, shouldn't they? All right, got to get y'all working with us. Their blatantly transparent motivations to hold on to power at any cost and under the guise of some sanctimonious religious purity, by crushing the free will of secular citizens, by persecuting religious minorities, and even conscientious but independently minded Muslims, reveal that these false prophets have their own hypocritical sinfulness. Would y'all agree? Come on, I gotta get y'all involved here. A just God will make sure that they meet their fate. We want the world to recognize the right of the Iranian people of self-defense, just as we do in this country, just as we do in the United States, and just as recognized in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. In America, we're so blessed to have the Founding Fathers' vision through the Second Amendment, a right that guarantees our First Amendment freedoms, including speech, religion, and assembly, just to name a few. For those who underestimate its power, we need only to look to Iran, whose defenseless citizens suffer under the brutality of an absolutely heavily armed, an evil dictatorship. But this revolution, this time, is focused on ending any kind of dictatorship in Iran. Can I get a witness? This is evident in the popular slogan, "Death to the dictator, be it the Shah or the leader." I applaud all who are demanding an end to the totalitarian regime and seeking a form of governance that derives its legitimacy from the people, not from an unelected dictatorial single party. It's time for that to be over. We know America recognizes it's time for that to be over. We want the world to recognize it's time for that to be over. And we want people to recognize that the future is head up by one Miss Miriam Rajavi. So let's give her a hand. The Resistance 10-point plan for the future of Iran calls for the universal right to vote, free elections, a market economy. It advocates gender, religious, and ethnic equality with a foreign policy based on peaceful coexistence and, as I've already said, a non-nuclear Iran. Emma Lazarus' memorable poem, The New Colossus, calls out from our beloved Statue of Liberty, and I'm quoting, "A mighty woman with a torch, whose flame is the imprisoned lightning, and her name Mother of Exiles," end quote. So I'm reminded again of Madame Rajavi's fearless leadership through these turbulent times, and we're lucky to have her, aren't we? You bet. And I'm inspired to paraphrase that great point from the Statue of Liberty. Folks, we stand with the people of Iran. We want the mullahs gone. We want the Khomeini gone. We want the IRG gone. Isn't it long past time? We are tired of the tyranny. Iranians are yearning to be free, and I'm proud to say we stand with you. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Thank you. Next, I'm very pleased to introduce Congressman Bill Johnson.
Well, I want to thank my good friend Tom McClintock from California for bringing us together today to discuss the brutality of the Iranian regime. I served in the United States Air Force for nearly 27 years. And I was in the Air Force in the early 70s when there was a day when Iran was not only our ally, they were our friends. And I worked alongside Iranian officers from their military, and it was a very different day. But the Iran of today is notorious for human rights abuses and Iranian women are so often the victims. Women's rights have been steadily rolled back there in Iran since 1979, the revolution. Women and mothers, wives and daughters are being tormented, beaten, raped, and brutally killed for standing up for their most basic, fundamental human rights. But in addition to the vile treatment of their own people, Iran has been aiding Russia in their bloody, unprovoked invasion of Ukraine. And we all know the horror Russians have inflicted on innocent civilians there in Ukraine. Yet still, with all this compelling evidence, the Biden administration remains adamant about cutting a deal with Iran and giving them access to nuclear weapons. Let me make this very clear. The Iranian regime is oppressive, violent, and unfit to possess a nuclear weapon. And here's my message to President Biden if he's listening. Do not encourage this behavior by continuing to talk about a nuclear deal. The Iranian regime is fundamentally anti-American and hostile to American human rights, our standard of human rights. Today we stand with all Iranians fighting for their God-given rights, especially the brave women taking a stand in the name of freedom. The Iranian regime should not be rewarded with a nuclear weapon or pallets of cash. And I, for one, will continue fighting to ensure they never will. Thank you, Mr. McClintock. Thank you.
And next, I'm very pleased to introduce Congressman Neil Dunn.
Thank you very much, Representative McClintock. I'm very proud to be standing here next to you in support of a democratic and a non-nuclear, secular Iran. I'm proud of the tremendous courage, sacrifice, and perseverance that the people of Iran have demonstrated during this protest and during the preceding 10 years as they protest against their corrupt government. This regime commits heinous acts against human rights, and there's real risk to those who protest. But this regime is working to destabilize the entire Middle East. Make no mistake, a nuclear Iran is a threat to the security of the entire Middle East, the United States, and the world. Iran continues to deceive the international community, and I believe this administration and Congress need to continue the targeted sanctions against this government. And I'm proud to co-sponsor this resolution against condemning the Iranian state-sponsored terrorist attacks. And I encourage the Iranian people to continue their fight for fundamental freedoms. We should all be working together to support the Free Republic of Iran. Thank you so very much, and thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And next, I'm very pleased to introduce my neighbor in California, Congressman Kevin Kiley.
Thank you, Congressman McClintock, for authoring this important resolution. I'm proud to be an original co-author, and thank you, everyone, for being here this morning. It's wonderful to be with you. In recent months, we have all been inspired by the bravery, courage, and resolve of those who believe in a free Iran and who are taking action at such great cost to make it a reality. In equal measure, we have been appalled by the brutality of a regime that has no regard for basic decency, no regard for its own people, no regard for the very foundation of our modern world: freedom, democracy, and human rights. And it is so important that we stand together in a bipartisan way to support the people of Iran and to condemn the ongoing abuses of this regime. It's equally important that we, the United States, do not do anything to enable and embolden this regime in its capacity to threaten its own people and to wreak havoc in the Middle East and across the world. So I'm very proud to be here to stand with you today. I want to thank everyone in the Iranian American community in my district, across California, across the country, who are here today, and who for the last several months, I know it's been a very, very trying time. But also, in many ways, a hopeful time. And we need to do everything in our power to ensure that hope wins out and to show that the United States will always stand on the side of freedom. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mrs. Rajavi, your leadership has been an inspiration to the people of Iran and to the people of the world. And I cannot wait to meet you personally in Tehran on Iran's Day of Deliverance, that you and the freedom-loving people of Iran have worked so hard to bring to us in the very near future. The floor is yours, Mrs. Rajavi.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chairman Tom McClintock. Thank you, Congressman Brad Sherman. I want to thank all the members of Congress who are here today. You represent the values of the American people. You are standing on the right side of the history. You are defending the rights of the Iranian people to determine their own future and to deny the Iranian regime the means and resources to suppress the population. We are on the anniversary of the anti-dictatorial revolution in 1979 when a unified nation swept a dictator, the Shah, out of power. But Khomeini hijacked the revolution and established a religious dictatorship. However, today, after more than 40 years of repression and resistance, the Iranian nation is ready again to overthrow another form of dictatorship. They want to put an end to 1 century of dictatorship and establish a democracy and pluralistic and secular republic. What you see in Iran today is another revolution in the making. This is the result of 40 years of organized resistance and fighting against the regime with 120,000 political executions. I'm confident that this revolution will succeed because it is led by those who are willing to pay the price. This revolution will succeed because the people are rejecting any form of dictatorship of the past and present. They only look to the future, which is a democratic republic based on separation of religion and the state, gender equality, and a non-nuclear Iran. Once again, I want to commend you all for this very important bipartisan initiative in Congress in support of the people of Iran and their uprising and the Iranian resistance, which you announced today. Thank you very much.
We're going to pause for just a moment. I'm told there are a number of other members who also want to speak on this very important issue who are arriving shortly. Ladies and gentlemen, it's now my pleasure to introduce Congressman Joe Wilson of South Carolina.
And ladies and gentlemen and friends of Free Iran, gosh, what a superstar you have with Tom McClintock, okay? If he's on your side, you will win. And But it's such an honor to be here with you, and my appreciation of the great culture of Iran, one of the great countries of the world, is really personal in that I think back at my wedding many years ago, the significance of the Iranian-American community. The very first couple that I actually could recognize when my eyes cleared were Ali and Izzat Davani, and so from Irmo, South Carolina. And then I'm really grateful that I've had in our office, Karen Karami was the toughest job in the office is scheduling. Somehow she survived because she's a really bright young lady of Iranian-American heritage. And so over and over again, it is personal, but also what an inspiration the young people of Iran are around the world. The world is in a competition between democracy's rule of law and autocracy's rule of gun. And what we have is the brave people, young people, and brave people, hopefully of every generation, even of age, of Iran, to be working for rule of law instead of rule of gun. And sadly, it's so sad to see the consequence of rule of gun holding back one of the great countries in the world. And there's other inspiration to see the young people of Ukraine to resist the authoritarian war criminal Putin, and sadly tens of thousands of young people, but they have died, and equally sad that Putin would have actually sacrificed young Russians who should have had a positive life. And so, and then sadly we also see the threat of the Chinese Communist Party to the 24 million people in Taiwan. And then we can see that it's such a threat to the Middle East, to all of our allies throughout the Middle East, of the capability of the theocrats in Tehran, the threat that they have of developing a nuclear capability with missile technology that puts from Bulgaria to India, southeastern Europe to India at risk. And so over and over again, I want to thank you. Gosh, to see all these bright faces here, please come back every day. And so, again, you're an inspiration to freedom and democracy around the world, and I'm just humbled to be here with you. And I just truly want to say, God bless the people of Iran. Thank you very much.
You know, as I said earlier, Americans disagree on many, many things. What brings us together as a Congress is to talk out those differences. But there is one thing that unites us all, and that is the freedom of the people of Iran. And I am very pleased and honored to have Congressman Sheila Jackson Lee of Texas in support of this resolution.
First, let me honor Madam Miriam Rajavi for the strength of your leadership, your persistence, your fearlessness, your courage, your championship, your fighting for democracy. Never give up, never give in, never give out. We applaud you and honor you today. Thank you so very much for your spirit. It is a delight to be here with my friend and colleague from Judiciary Committee, Congressman McClintock, who we have had the ability to agree on this wonderful focus. And in Congress, it is important to have the freedom of democracy to agree and disagree. And that occurs among members. But we have no disagreement for the question and the answer. When should Iran be free? And the answer is now, 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 now. So I'm excited about introducing H-Res 100 as a resolution that continues to speak the language of freedom, and it continues to stomp on the injustices of the regime that include arbitrary arrests, torture, unjust executions and the loss of your family members. It also keeps those of us who love the Persian history from being able to go to Iran, touch the soil, touch the people, and celebrate a democratic regime. And so I am here this morning to be able to celebrate Madam President and the messages of leadership. I'm here to celebrate men and women, but I'm also here to celebrate the leadership of women and what has happened in the streets of this very fine land. And again, we will never forget your loved ones of whom we walk through the cemetery that was pictured right outside the United States Capitol with the crosses of loved ones who've died over the decades. But we will never forget Masha Amini, who stood for freedom and should not have died in the torturous and horrible way in which she did. But she was a courageous young woman of only 22 years old. And others have taken to the street because of her symbol and because of her reality. And we want to be able to keep that fight going in the United States Congress before the President of the United States of America, because we must be the moral umbrella for the nation, for the world, and for Iran. We will not cease until Iran is free. So let me thank all of you who have gathered here this morning. Thank you for recognizing the value of being in the citadel of democracy. That is this nation's capital. That is our underpinnings of our history. That is our Constitution. And as Iranian Americans, you should always have your voices raised, and we should let our sound of outrage continue to be heard in the halls of government or the halls of the regime that depresses and oppresses every single day. They should know that they're fighters who are never going to give up the voice, the word, and the cry for freedom. When do we want it? Now. Freedom, when do we want it? Now. Freedom, when do we want it? Now. And a democratic regime is what we want for all of the people of Iran, all of Iranian Americans, and Iranians all over the diaspora. And HRES 100, again, puts our footprint down. We want it to go all the way to the desk of the President, to the Senate, and we want everyone to hear what we stand for in this country. Let me thank all of my co-sponsors and, of course, the lead sponsor who has galvanized all of us together. We're in the fight until democracy reigns strong in the motherland, Iran. Thank you all so very much. Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Madam President. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dear Sheila Jackson.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes this press conference, but the struggle for Iran's freedom will continue until it is won. When we were fighting for our liberation as a nation, one of our patriots, Thomas Paine, wrote that these are the times that try men's souls. The summer soldier and the sunshine patriot will in this crisis shrink from their duty, but he who stands it now deserves the thanks of man and woman. I believe that for generations to come, the people of Iran will look back on all of you and upon you, Mrs. Rajavi, with thanksgiving and gratitude for delivering to them the free, secular, non-nuclear Republic of Iran that they have every right to demand and every reason to deserve. Thank you all for coming. Now, next year, let's have this meeting in Tehran.
Thank you all. Thank you all. It was a pleasure to join you online in this press briefing to announce filing your resolution in support of the Iranian people, their uprising, and the Iranian resistance. You have been pioneer in calling for a firm policy on Iran. As you said, the Iranian people and their resistance will never give up. And thank you again, and God bless you all.
Thank you.